my God. My God. It has been... How long has it been? It's been a while. It's been like a month. And my connection to YouTube is still working, so I'm going to take that. If you notice that the audio is not great, that's because it's not. I was messing with my studio setup and moved a bunch of XLR cables that were running over here to do my good mic. I moved them. I lost track of that sentence in the middle of that sentence. Anyway, so we're using webcam audio, so it is what it is. Sorry, but I'm streaming, so you can't fault me for that. Anyhow, let us copy this YouTube linky-doo and put it over in the poor, unloved Discord. Everyone. We live in here. And there's a link. Okie dokie. So let me get the chat set up. Always a bit of a long lead in on these because I have to set up several things. And also, there is a child upstairs throwing things around. That's how long it's been. I no longer have a baby, I just have a child now. Yeah, that I will use that to segue into, as I'm figuring out where chat, there's chat. Wereworm says evening, and I say evening Wereworm. Pop out chat. There we go. Meant that to the side screen. Anyway, yeah, so child, no, there is, normally children no sleep, though that's really more the domain of my wife than me, graciously. But I take care of him on the weekends, and I have been doing the dumb thing of last 2 nights running. I'm getting somewhere with this, I promise you. I have stayed up till 2 in the morning, which you don't get an option when you have a kid. I actually, the one thing I do is I wake up with him every morning, and he wakes up about 7:30, pretty reg. And then you have to get up because he is a tiny little child. So staying up till 2 a.m. to work on projects is not really good for you. Because, yeah, I'm running on 2 batches of 5 hours of sleep, which is not great. So we'll see how the stream goes, because that's why I forgot what I was saying in the middle of that one sentence a few sentences back, because, yeah, it's probably going to be a lot like that, this stream. So prepare for bleariness, long pauses, and poor decision-making, though that last one is, there's nothing new there, really. But the transition I was talking about, the thing where this is relevant is, because I have to start every one of these episodes recently with what have I been doing that has been, taking away from my my NES time. And some people may know if you've been Delirious NES Shenanigans sounds like a good stream title, says AIO. I was working on this thing, which I was working on the 6500 tutor thing before. Those are done, as you've seen. Everybody's seen the tutorial videos, so I won't really talk about that anymore. Those aren't meant to be content per se. It's just that the people I gave those to have no idea how to use something like that, and so the point is that I'm making a series of tutorials, short little tutorial videos, and putting them on the GitHub so that they have something to work with. But if you find it entertaining, then there you go too. Also, all the schematics are there if you want to build one. I think they're neat. Anyway, right after saying I wasn't going to talk about that because there was a different thing that I was not working on, or that I was working on that was keeping me from working on the NES. And this is what I've been up screwing with till 2 a.m. This is also, if you go on my GitHub, I have a project called Journal where I'm just keeping journal entries whenever I do work on anything in a day, and it's all been this thing so far. So you will, if you follow the channel, this is the dual port SRAM plus old CPLD video card, and I've been doing a lot of playing with it, because the whole point of this was to do something with it someday, and for some reason I just got the wild hair. I'm it works, and like often you'll quit a project because it was like the last time you messed with it, it put it in a not working properly state, and then you never get back to it because you don't want to have to debug it and whatnot. But this was working fine when I put it away. So I've been messing with it a bunch. One of the big things is, firstly, I wanted to strap this to a computer, which will happen at some point here, but I also wanted to consolidate the board because I was using an external DAC, which is I have resistors, I can build one, and I have built one channel of that DAC so far, and I also realized what I had going before was I was doing 4BPP video, and these are each 16-bit SRAMs, and I am also multiplexing between the two of them, their output is tied together, so there's one 16-bit wide pixel bus. And I was using a discrete set of chips, which are no longer here, I desoldered them, to multiplex between the 4 nibbles that were in existence there on the bus at any given time. So I had a whole set of wires going from here to here to do that, but I have a ton of uncommitted space on the CPLD, so I just ran that bus into the CPLD, and now the CPLD does it. So that was one big upgrade that I made. So now there's not all that, there's not the extra logic, it's just the CPLD does what CPLDs do best, and it's doing that demultiplexing and outputting a 8-bit value, actually, because the other thing that I want to do, I was going to go get some parts, but I guess I don't have to, because another thing I ordered was more dual-port SRAM, because it's a lot of fun. I don't know why it appeals to me so much, but it does. And that's what these are. These are each 1K byte, 8-bit wide. And I got these originally because I was thinking I wanted to use them for palette RAM. That's another one of the main things that I had wanted to do with this originally, was make a paletted video mode. But you need, palette memory for that. And I figured the dual port RAM, just using more dual port RAM would be great, because then I can just, same way I do with the video RAM, I can write to it from the CPU side without having to worry about VBlank and the video generation circuitry messing with and having to complicate access to the memory. It's a nice thing about dual port SRAM. That's why I was using these in the first place. So that way I can write my my palette values into this without having to do anything special, and then basically the 8 bits of output from this will go into the address of one of these, not these in particular, just more of this. I'll put it over here. And I'm thinking I'm going to do 16-bit final colors. Probably realistically I'll do what would that be? That would be 556, 6 bits green. No, that's not it. What am I thinking of? 16 bits. Oh, no, that would be right, because 555 would be 15. You add one more because you got an extra bit, and the eye is most sensitive to green, so add an extra bit to green. Why not? But here's the thing, is that will allow me, because this is 64K total bytes of video RAM, which I'm using only slightly more than half of that to do what this card is currently configured for, which is 640 by 480, 1 BPP. But I want to do nice colors and whatnot, hence the point of doing paletted modes. And 64K is just enough to do 320 by 200, 256 color, 8-bit paletted, which is, it's the mode that a lot of DOS games run in, but Doom runs in that mode. So this is one of my goals, is to get Doom running on this card at some point, because of course. Anyway, so that's the palette story. Eventually, that's the thing, is this is a 5-bit resistor ladder DAC that I've got set up right now. So I'm going to do 2 more of those at some point. Right now I don't need to, because I've moved on to the whole other fun side of things, which is all this shit. So all of this is added since last time, and what I have added is a 68K because I have a drawer full of them that I got off of eBay a while ago, and I actually mentioned that on like one of my earliest videos was that I bought a bunch of PGA 68Ks off eBay and had my fingers crossed that they worked, because I always wanted to build something around a 68K. You don't see anything that's not 8-bit as far as like homebrew shenanigans very often, so that was the thing. And it also feels very cool using a PGA chip. Like, that feels like, you know, very advanced. But it's really, you know, it's not any more complicated than the PLCCs that I've already been using. It's the same kind of footprint at the end of the day, and it's on a 1/10 of an inch grid, so you can just put it on a breadboard like this. It's perfect. Anyway, so this is the part that like I've just been obsessed with lately because of all of those mentioned reasons. And the first thing was like I have a bunch of ROMs sitting around because for the 6502 tutor project, when I was originally designing it, I was just kind of buying parts as I found relatively good deals on eBay, and I bought a bunch of 32K EEPROMs because would be useful presumably. But the 6502 tutor, I didn't end up putting ROM in, so I have a ton of EEPROMs sitting around. Very useful. So I thought, you know, I have those sitting around, and I have this 6502 that I've been meaning to mess with for forever. Why don't I just put it on this board and make this thing an accelerated graphics card? And so I did that. I just couldn't stop myself. So we've got the 68K. I realized, yo, I've got a bunch of these. I've got more of these dual port SRAMs sitting around than I need. So we could slap 2K of RAM on this thing for work RAM, and then a couple ROMs for, you know, the boot up stuff in here. The other cool thing about using a dual port SRAM here is that I can put this on the same CPU bus that the VRAM is on, and I can put stuff in the working memory of the 68K, so that, for example, what I'm figuring is that, like, when this thing starts up, eventually, when I write decent software for it, there's going to be a bunch of, you know, graphics routines in the ROM, and the CPU will sit in a loop, like, waiting for a spot in memory to be changed, and the CPU will maybe put in, like, some kind of, like, command list, like, write it somewhere into the RAM, and then flip a bit somewhere in memory that the CPU is sitting here spinning waiting for, and then the CPU flips another bit to say, hey, I'm working on it, and then it runs through all of those graphics commands and poops them into VRAM, and does graphics acceleration. So like line drawing, stuff like that. So would be cool. I'm figuring I can at the very least do some fun demos like you know, like some wireframe 3D crap would be neat. But the coolest thing about this is it's a full 68K. It's working. Oh, the only other thing on here is, of course, another 16V8 for decoding, which that's the fun thing, too, is, like, it doesn't take much to get the 68K going, even though, you know, you mostly see, like, Z80 and 6502 single-board computer projects. Like, the only difference here is that there's more address lines, which doesn't really matter, because you only need to hook up as many address lines as your memory devices have. So, you know, this thing has 24 address lines, but I'm only using 14, like 16 of them technically, because my ROMs are the thing that has the most address pins, and then I've got the two highest pins, 23 and 24, I am using for address decoding, so that I have my ROM area, my RAM area, I have a debug register area, and then I also have an area that I haven't used yet for accessing the video RAM. Anyway, that's been super fun. I'll try and wrap it up with this, because of course this is not the point today, but I've been doing a lot on it, so there's a lot to say. But it's just a ton of fun to work with, and the thing that I just managed to wrap up today that is just so freaking fun is that I built a 68K cross tool chain for this, which is really not that hard. I don't know if I've just gotten a lot better with that kind of software as I've gotten older, and like since the last time I've tried doing that kind of thing, it seemed much more black boxy, but man, building a cross GCC is so easy. But anyway, so I built a cross 68K GCC, stole some code from the Genesis stuff that I was doing forever ago, and I'm running compiled C code on this thing, and that just it's not that crazy, but like for me, that's crazy. Like to have hand built something and to be running compiled code on a thing that you built, as opposed to like assembly, it's like there's no mystery to it. I put all of the bits in there exactly where I wanted to, you know. I know exactly what every bit should be in memory and where it should be in the ROMs. But like this is that extra air of mystery because it was written in a slightly higher level language, and man, it's just so cool. I was supposed to plug this in at some point, but because it doesn't have much memory. But the thing is, this is C code. Just reset it. Hopefully, maybe. Watch it. Of course, it's not going to work when I actually want to demo it. There's no reason it shouldn't, but and normally poking the reset line with a screwdriver is good enough to pull it to ground, but there you go. I don't know what that was about, but there you go. There you go. Yeah, you can see that pretty okay on the camera. It's I mean, it's just counting, but that's in C. That's a loop written in C. Okay, I'm done with that. I'll mess with that more later. But yeah. Next step, besides all the stuff that I listed before, which I'll get to at some point, because I'm clearly focusing on this section now. This and this are not connected to each other at all, but really all I need to do is wire them together. The thing is, I still want to keep the not video generation side of these dual port SRAMs open, like to be the CPU bus side of things, so that they can just cleanly access stuff without having to wait for anything. But what I'm thinking, and this will be fun too, is that I'm going to put some bus transceiver chips between the 68K bus and these guys, and then this will be fun because one of the advanced-ish things about the 68K is it has the async bus and it has a DTAC pin, which is basically the acknowledge that a bus transfer is done pin, which right now it's just wired to 0. Everything is fast enough to run at CPU speed. But I should be able to use that by taking my my blanking signal that's being generated in here, and whenever this is blanking, or rather, whenever this is not blanking, make the DTAC signal, you know, blanking and address select, basically. So if it tries to select the address of that, then that, and also use that blanking signal to enable the address or the bus transceivers, so that, you know, the buses are completely separate between here and here, except during blanking when this is tri-stated its access to these guys, and then it can basically connect them to the 68K, and the 68K can dump stuff straight into them. So that way I can just use it as a plain frame buffer still and dump stuff into it from the CPU, and I can do accelerated stuff, and I don't think it'll be that bad, because we can do a lot of because like it won't be accessing VRAM all that often, theoretically. Like it's not using it for instructions, and it's not using that bus for instructions, so even while this thing is not blanking, this can be executing code from ROM and using work RAM and running full speed, and only when it wants to transfer stuff into VRAM does it need to wait potentially for a blanking period if it's not already in one. So it should still be pretty fast if I do that. Anyway, very excited about that. That's my next step. I cannot wait to be dumping pixels into here. Very excited. Very excited. And we'll see how long this lasts, because this is a 10 megahertz 68K, and my pixel clock is, you know, 25 something megahertz for VGA, and I'm running this at half the VGA clock speed. So that's, you know, 12 and a half-ish megahertz. And it seems pretty stable. It gets a little warm. I don't know. It's running like, you know, like 20% fast, which is pretty significant, but I think it's gonna be fine. We'll see. If not, I have another 68K. Actually, I might have 2. So, we'll see. But I'm thinking that way. Hopefully they since they're on the same clock, that'll keep things a little more in sync, and then the spots where it has to wait for bus transfer and whatnot, I can make sure they're pretty regular, and it should be less of a headache that way too. Anyway, that's that project that nobody cares about. Well, nobody who's tuning into this stream is tuning in to see that. Actually, I'm gonna need this. But that's a fun thing. I'll give updates on that. Maybe I'll just, from now on, if I can get back to being a little more regular with these things, with It's Just a PC streams, I'll just give updates on things that are not It's Just a PC at the top of the stream. Anyway, super fun. That's super great. Let's move on. So, I've burned... When did I even start? Like 5:25-ish? So I've burned 20 minutes just talking about that. Let's talk about what we're actually doing today. Firstly, let me catch up on chat just a touch. Lawless said hi, and I did not say hi. Lawless said, I've not been here for a while. Can I get an update on the project? Which is a perfect place for me to read that, because I don't remember... I mean, I don't remember a lot of what's been going on with this project in particular, because it's been going on so long, and it's been so off and on lately. And the thing is, it's been... So I don't know if the last time you watched we had moved over to the like proper PCB for this instead of using the Mario Kart. But that was the last, well, not the last thing, but that was a big change, and then there was a lot of nothing because things just kept not working. And then finally, last time we streamed, it was kind of fun because so this thing, I said I need it because I only have one of them for some silly reason. But this is an FTDI breakout thingy, and I've been using it for a bunch of different sundry tasks. For example, right, like I've been using it for USB power a lot because it's very easy to pull USB power off of this. But the cool thing is it's a TTL level RS-232 input. So I was using that for bit bang serial on the 6502 tutor. Because that's such a simple board. There's no UART on it or anything. It's basically just RAM and a CPU. So I bought this originally I realized if you bit bang straight into an FTDI, you don't need a UART, you don't need a level converter, and you can plug it straight into a PC, and that will make people happy. So that's why I have this. But it's also been super useful because I realized, oh, holy crap, I can do the same thing with an NES. So that was the biggish thing last time where we actually made some progress on something, is I stole my 6502 tutor code, because that's also 6502, just like the NES. So I was basically just able to pull the assembly over so that this thing could bit bang receive RS-232 payloads over USB, which should make our dev life a little bit easier so that I don't have to keep pulling out the ROM once I have that in the monitor. Then we worked on putting that in the monitor, and then yet again, like it was working, but it was not useful because when I'd start transfers, this thing would immediately, well, not immediately, but like after a minute, the CPU clearly jumps off into La La Land. My guess being that my bus is flaky, it's reading it's reading an incomplete command, like a floaty, not stable command off of the data bus, or the address isn't stable and it's reading a bad command because the address is flaky and going off to La La Land. One of the concerns, we played with some things, but one of the concerns raised was these cables real long, probably potentially introducing a bunch of noise and being directly connected to the CPU bus, and therefore, being fast and noisy at those kind of lengths. So, here's my thought, is I have extra floppy controllers. I actually didn't know this until I looked just moments before we streamed, but I do have an extra floppy drive header. I was just going to use regular headers, but this is better. I have IC sockets for days. I'm just going to bite the bullet and move everything over to the PCB, and then we'll know that it's not this if we continue to have issues. But hopefully that will solve some of our issues and just make a bit of a tighter unit altogether. So what I'm thinking, what I'm planning, this is going to be kind of a soldering and yakking heavy video, but you know, firstly, I'm just gonna yank all this shit off, and I'm going to not desolder stuff from this card, because what I want to do is I'm gonna do this step by step. I'm gonna start by moving the ROM over to here. Or rather, I'm going to remove everything, but the first thing I'm going to put back is the ROM, make sure that's working, then continue from there. I'll probably put some SRAM on there while I'm at it, because I got a bunch, and we need SRAM. And then finally moving the floppy controller over here. And I'm not going to take anything off of this board while I'm doing that, because I think it'll be fastest just to copy the wiring that I have on the floppy controller as it is. And just, you know, check it on here, run that wire, check it for the next wire, run that wire, until I have cloned it, because that's going to be the biggest pain in the butt. It's really not that bad. The floppy controller is actually a relatively straightforward wiring. It's just that it's based on a like example circuit that's in the datasheet, and I think it'll be faster to just do that rather than looking up that circuit in the datasheet again. So, without further ado, yoink, yoink, pop this shit over here, heat up my soldering iron, which is currently cold, and look at more chat, because I only read one chat. AIO Incorporated said, okay, but you totally could run it from VRAM. That would be interesting. That was actually going to be my original plan, because specifically like with the 640 by 41 BPP, that's like 32 something K of memory worth of pixels. So you got almost another 32K worth of just space. So I was like, oh, well then I'll just I was thinking I'd literally just strap it to the CPU bus and run out of VRAM basically. And then my thought was, yeah, that way I don't even remember how I was thinking, because it couldn't be on the CPU bus, because the CPU was going to be on the CPU bus, and the CPU was going to be able to just dump instructions into VRAM and then reset the 68K to just execute whatever it dumped in there. Kind of like, you know, a lot of coprocessor type setups. Like, of course, I have Genesis on the mind. I was thinking of the Genesis sound processor does the same thing. It's a Z80 that's just sitting there, and it has access to a bank of RAM, and from there's no like ROM that belongs to that Z80. It's just you shit a program into Z80 RAM space from the 68K main processor, and then reset the Z80, and so it does whatever you program it to do. Whereas with that, I'm planning on like having it kind of more properly talk to the CPU and like have a graphics command set. Anyway, what was the question? Yes, that was originally I thought was to run it from VRAM, but you get more bandwidth, you get more processing time this way, because you can totally separate the bus and just execute out of ROM for most of your execution that's not dumping to VRAM. All said, I have seen the PCB and the floppy, but I do not remember if the driver was working. That is the perennial thing with this project, is the driver. We successfully read a sector. We read it beautifully one time, like 4 months ago, and never again. So anyway, I'm not even going to mention anything floppy for a while, because it's just been a giant headache. And right now we're just going to focus on moving things over to this card and updating things so that I can put a payload into RAM over the serial board, so that we can develop a little bit faster. And then, when we can develop faster and iterate a little faster, maybe we can develop floppy routines a little faster. AIO said, was that where the cool freakazoid effect was happening? That sounds so familiar, but I don't remember what you're talking about. Anyway, refresh my memory. And AIO Incorporated said, yeah, but put it in the visible region. I was thinking the same thing. Because that's the thing, is also if I want to do the 320 by 200 256 color mode, that uses up exactly 64K of RAM, so there would be nothing to execute out of unless you just had an area on screen that was your program. Anyway, okay. I'm going to desolder the wires from this, and then I really have to pee, so I'm going to do that. AIO Incorporated said, where all the letters on the screen were flashing like crazy and the machine was having a breakdown. Yeah, I mean, that's been the problem. That has been the whole fucking problem. Okay, let's desolder some crap. And then I will pause and whiz. You just always feel like, especially working on what is ostensibly a more complicated project with the 68K, you know, you just go back to this and you're like, I've been doing a lot of similar work lately, and now I'm looking at this and I'm just like, I could do better. I could do better. This doesn't seem, like, especially, you know, redoing and moving things to the card, it doesn't seem like as much work all of a sudden for some reason. Like, I can do that. I can knock that out. Whereas before, that's kind of probably one of the reasons that I haven't streamed in a while, was I was like, this probably doesn't work because of those long wires, but I can't prove it, or, I mean, you know, it's non-trivial to prove that. And one of the ways of proving it is to move everything over to the board so that I have much shorter wire runs. But that would be a huge pain in the butt. It's going to be a ton of work, and then what if it doesn't work? But now that I've been doing work on the other card, and like I've been relatively speeding along on it, that made me feel like, just screw it, I can do this. I was going to stream anyway, but that was like my... I was trying to figure out what my next steps would be when I was thinking about doing another one of these streams last night-ish, and that's when I had that feeling where I was like, just fuck it, that's not that bad anymore. I feel like I've gotten even faster at running wires, and that's really the part that takes forever. And I've gotten more confident at the, I think I've said this before, but the biggest, to me, the biggest hurdle really with working with this kind of stuff, particularly like strapping things to a CPU, at least with slower, older CPUs like this, you don't tend to have, like you can see with this one, it generally runs okay. It's not like it just straight up doesn't run. Even though, like, this is so messy, and there were no decoupling caps, there's no nothing, there's huge weird wire runs, it's really messy. But usually, you know, when you do this for a little bit, you know in your heart of hearts, somewhere in there, that like when you're debugging a problem, you're like, it could be this, it could be that, what could it be? It's like, yeah, just trust yourself and assume it's not some flaky hardware issue, because it's almost never some flaky hardware issue. As long as you've connected the wires and they run to the right place, like, it pretty much works. Your issue is probably either code or maybe you ran a wire to the wrong place and you didn't notice. And that's what it always ends up being. You're always like poking around trying to figure it out and wasting time, or rather I find I am, and it turns out to always be that. You're like, oh, it was that again. It was that I just didn't connect a wire right, or it was that my software is wrong. It's almost always that the software running on the thing is wrong. That's 95% of the time. That's what it ends up being for me, and I don't focus on that, and it wastes my time. So I think that's why I feel confident and I've gotten faster now, is that having done a bunch of this work in the meantime, it's really solidified that for me, like, psychologically, and I think I've gotten faster, because I'm like, it's not, stop poking around, it's not like marginal signals. It's like, at this kind of speed, there either is a signal or isn't a signal. It's not going to be marginal enough that it's going to cause things to just not work like that. You might get some flakiness like this, which I'm still not convinced that that's what's going on here. But if you turn it on and it's not working, it's because your software is wrong or you ran a wire to the wrong place. That's it. And now, feeling confident in that knowledge, more confident, I feel like I can move faster. All right, we got nothing on here anymore. When I come back, let us jam a ROM socket on here. Okay, see you in a minute. audio. That'll help. Why is this fuzzy? This is just a normal webcam. Hello, hello, hello. Autofocus on my face. No. Okay, you get fuzz face. Okay. One quick thing that I saw was, well, it said desoldering that hurts me. It seems like it was a lot of work, but that's what I'm saying now. Is I feel like I felt the same way, and now I don't feel that as much anymore. Maybe because time has separated me from it. And Wereworm said, and most of the soldering time was not so much soldering individual things, it was reworking things over and over and over again. Wereworm says, show us your MIPS CPU, so I will really quick. Okay, so MIPS CPU, yes, of course. This is it. It's just another PLCC. Just like all the other PLCCs that came before it. It is kind of like an SoC. I don't know if I have mentioned this. I don't remember where I was talking about this. Did I mention it on Discord? I probably mentioned it on Discord. But so this is, it's a R3000 core in here. But it's kind of like an SoC almost. I didn't realize that, like, most MIPS CPUs are kind of like this, where there's actually a bunch of peripherals on die. It's like the way that MIPS was set up, was they were like, let's do a core, but then let's also have a coprocessor interface, but have a bunch of the, like, literally just executing instructions, portions of CPU functionality that will be in every chip anyway, be implemented as coprocessor interfaces. So, like, I don't know if they all have a memory controller, but something like that. But this has a bunch of useful stuff on board for something that's as modern as this, you know, as compared to like a 68K is getting, that 68K is just about as modern as you can get without needing a bunch of support hardware for like cache and, you know, RAM control and stuff like that. Like basically where you're getting to the point where you're developing what is essentially like a south bridge or a north bridge, whatever. The things that now everything's moved inside of the CPU. So this is kind of similar to a modern CPU in that way. But it's got the MIPS core, it's got an MMU, it's got cache. It's got instruction and data cache on here, a reasonable amount, but enough that like you don't have to implement cache externally with this thing. So it's almost system on chip-ish, but not quite. It doesn't have any like peripherals on board. It's just like all the CPU support stuff is on here, which is sick. Like theoretically, you can mostly just strap a ROM and an SRAM on this thing and have a system, which is awesome. I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that was like a thing. I wasn't looking for these. I just like searched MIPS CPU on eBay and like found these, and I was like, oh, that is interesting as heck. I think the weirdest thing about this is going to be, firstly, there are like some modes that this can run in, like selecting big endian versus little endian, some other configuration things like that, like how wide the data bus is. And those are like it's something weird, like those are put on the address bus at CPU reset time. Like you have to put them there at CPU reset time, which kind of complicates things a little bit, but it's probably manageable. And the bus is multiplexed. It's a full 32-bit address and data bus, which would need way more pins. They're multiplexed on here. So demultiplexing that, not really too bad. It's like demultiplexing the 65816, but there's just more wires. So that's that, and I have a tube of them. And my plan is, sorry, I'll get here. But you ask questions, I gotta answer them. My plan is to use that as the main CPU. It's really meant for like embedded stuff, but whatever. It was meant for like early 2000s high performance embedded stuff, which means that it's a CPU that if you want to think of like this being an early 90s workstation is what I'm aiming for. It's got that kind of performance. It's just as good. That's how I'm thinking of it. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, that to be the core of the machine. And then I was playing with, I don't know if I ever mentioned on the Discord or whatnot, but this is just a thing I started putting together, making plans in my head. These are just a bunch of DRAM sims. I've been scared to mess with DRAM because I've only been messing with SRAM because it's so easy, but DRAM it's less scary. I just need to build a controller for it, and I think that's going to be okay. I'm going to use one of the CPLDs for that. But yeah, the idea here is I only have so much board real estate to work with, but I'm going to put the CPU and ROM and a couple of peripherals on this board, and then I have this memory mezzanine, and these SRAM modules, they had like solderable holes in each of the doodly-doos, like the teeth, pads, there's a word for that. And so I just dropped headers into it, and there you go. I have messed with these before. I ran one with a Pi Pico just to be like, you can do this. It's not so scary. You can run DRAM. And that made me feel confident. And that was quite some time ago. But now, putting these on here, I think this is 4 megs of DRAM. And I'm going to have a MIPS CPU with 4 megs of DRAM and some stuff. And then the idea is I'm going to connect this to the video card and have like maybe a Unix workstation built by my own hands, which has kind of been my dream. That's like why I started doing stuff. Okay, AIO said, modern DRAM control is ridiculously simple. Is it? Because I get the impression that like DDR is hairy. Like, that's not so bad. That, it's just like you have to prevent anything that's trying to access the DRAM. You have to like force it into wait states for a minute every now and then when you're doing a refresh cycle, like every 8 milliseconds or something. You have to refresh the next block, but that's it. And if I like, there's a way to do that in a very dumb way that is not very performant, like it's not squeezing the last little bit of performance out of it, but would work fine. And I'm trying to keep that in mind. Is like if I implement that first, then the system will work, and I'll have 4 megs of RAM. And then I can potentially make it more performant, but like literally just pausing everything every 8 milliseconds and doing a refresh will be fine. You know, it'll be a working system. So, again, most of the stuff, it's like trying to get in the headspace where I'm not scared of it, because it's really mostly not scary. You just have to like play with it, and then you understand it, and then you do it. But yeah, my understanding was that DDR is much hairier. This, you just have to access it, you chip select. This is people who work on old computers will be like, yeah, duh, you're getting this totally wrong, because you know, like Apple IIs and whatnot all use DRAM chips. But you do like address strobe, put the first however many bits of the address on the address pins, and then do the data strobe, put the other address, like the other part of the address on the address pins, and then you get a bit of data on the other side. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Anyway, AIO said, I think most of them are just strobe cast these days. I don't know, man. But those aren't modern. Those are pulled out of a Mac from some point. Let's get to soldering. I can talk about this more as I solder. Here we are. So firstly, let me be smart and like think about layout for a hot second, so I don't end up not being able to put everything that I want to be able to put on here. Because we're gonna need the floppy controller. We're gonna need the floppy connector. Probably putting here would be smart, you know, what with the this being towards the outside and all. And then we need a where's my box o sockets? Box o sockets. Let me just find the right size one. These ones, that seems too small, but let's give it a try. Oh no, it's probably this, of which I of course have one left. Yes, there we go. That's not construction. That is my child hitting something against the ground. And good for him. Okay, so I need that. I'm rapidly running out of space. I need... How big is this EEPROM? Which I could potentially use a smaller EEPROM too. Because that's like a 128K or something silly. But I have... more of these 32K ones, and it's smaller, so that might be good, because I'm not using all of that chip, and nor do I think I would need to. Like, with my plans with this, I don't need a ton of RAM, I just need enough to, like, put in a nice bootloader, and maybe the monitor and stuff. Yeah. So, like... Okay, maybe... And of course, you know, we're also running into the issue of I already put the character ROM in a weird spot. Okay, that could go there. I don't hate that. And then we have some room for activities. If we move this, come on, bro. To be more in line with the floppy connector, or the floppy controller. Yeah, this is shaping up. And then, how big of a socket do I need for these? Will this work? No, of course not. Shoot. Just looking at this, I feel like it's fairly clear I don't have that socket size. Which is not the end of the world. Maybe I'll just use the full-size ROM after all. It's a difference of 2 pins. But also I've only like really got one of these left, so if I kill it, I can recover, but it would be a pain, whereas I have a bunch of these. Let me do some quick scanning elsewhere, just in case I have the perfect exact right socket. I might. It's possible. Just really, I'm either too many or too few. Oh, I know why. I already stole all these sockets for figuring out the layout on the board that I was just showing you. That would make sense. Is that small enough? I think I was just doing this, and the answer is no. Wait, maybe. No, not really. It's like, can I drop that right in there next to it? But, no. Because then I wouldn't have to run wires past the... Like, I wouldn't have to run the floppy... Here, let me just show you what I'm thinking. Because I had it like this before. And then if I put like that there... I mean, I could just put it over here. But then now I'd have to like run the floppy wires past a chip they have nothing to do with. And it's not a big deal. We can also... where's my SRAM? Do I have extra SRAM? Oh, you know what? You know what I have is this Alliance part that has been sitting around for forever. I have some other ones that I really want to use for more 6502-ers because I have a couple more to build. But this, I don't think I have a socket big enough for this. I might just be able to use multiple sockets. But, it's called an S07C256, so this is probably another 32K. Yeah, it has to be. But this has been around for forever, and I bet money it works. And I think I can test it. And if it works fine, then we're gonna use it. XG Pro. I added more monitors to my setup, and boy, it's just so much better now, because I don't have to look at the TV that's up over there anymore to see chat and my OBS and whatnot, and I still have a screen to share my screen on, right, which I should do now. There you go. XG Pro. Yeah, I think XG Pro has a chip testing facility. Let us switch to, let's see, what was the full thingy on here? Alliance. Oh no, it's AS7C. AS7C256B. AS7C256B. Nope, but is there 7C256? There's an AM227C256, which I'm sure this is the... Oh, no, that's... Oh, yeah, DIP28. So that is almost surely a compatible part. But the question is... I swear there's like a testing thing for these, but I don't remember how to go to it. Is it verify? Oh, don't check the ID, because it's not the AMD part. Okay, I think that literally just... I don't know. I don't know what it did. It probably wrote the buffer to it, or did it read and compare with the buffer? Probably. Man, I know there's a way. What is this? Logic test. That's just regular ass logic. Is chat telling me anything good? Probably not, but... AIO Incorporated said, as far as modern DRAM, they meant modern, implying stuff after like the early 80s. I'm pretty sure most 4164s are already just strobe CAS or RAS. I always get them mixed up to refresh that bank. That's one nice thing, is I should be able to... There's an auto refresh on those DRAMs. RAS before CAS refresh, or whatever that's called. Worm said, will the ribbon connector there fit under the metal bar of the NES slot? Oh, you make a good point. I kind of assumed this would go out past that, but that is a big assumption. Oh, it actually does. You're going to love this. Look at that. Look at that. Perfect. This might even work with the machine closed. Dang. I mean, I won't be able to put a case on it, but yeah. Which is also one of the reasons I was saying I wasn't going to do this in the first place. But at some point I decided, fuck it. Okay, so I am just going to assume this works. ID check. Not construction, my kid hitting something against the ground. He's doing science. You're not wrong. I actually love that. Where I've said strobe caster refresh for chips with the internal refresh counter. Yeah, we're all talking about the same thing. AIO is getting pizza. I am jelly, but there should be hot wings coming very soon. Made to be. Nintendo did it on purpose. It's just a PC. There we go. I want to say, I'm just going to assume that this is fine. But I don't want to jam it in and then have it not be fine. I wonder if I do something silly like load up one of my ROM images from something else, such as, for example, let's do the stuff from It's Just a PC. Let's put a 32K ROM image on here. Oh wait, no, that's way bigger than 32K. So yeah, let's use these. These are exactly 32K. These are some ROMs for my 68K board. And that has some stuff in it. I wonder if you can do like clear buffer with random. No, you can't. So what I'm thinking is, you know, write data to the RAM, see if it holds it, and then, I mean, there still really isn't much in here. Where is my code? That should be at 200. There it is. I mean, so that's a decent check. But I don't know if it's going to keep power applied to the chip. Let's just see. Yeah, because it's not flash. Okay. All right, fine. I'm just gonna assume it's okay. The only reason I'm so unsure is, again, this chip has been sitting around for a long time. I think I bought this for my original, way back when I was originally going to build a 68K machine. I bought some of these. And this may still be from that. Okay, yes, I think this will work if I do like this. This is silly because I'm supposed to be soldering in the ROM, really. But size check. We must size check. Yeah, that'll... You could call that working. Yes. So, okay. Floppy controller over here. You know what I can probably even do? Where's my... Do I have any extra 16V8Bs? I do. And I should definitely be able to fit a 20-pin chip over here. Yeah, I can. No problem. So... Yeah. Yeah. No problem. And I guess what I can do is just put these all in place, tack them down, and then make each of them work one by one, right? Nope, I fucked up that pin entirely. Okay. Just because I'm going to just put that up a little bit. And I think we have a system. The only thing... I'll put that in a socket too. Do I have 20-pin sockets? Of course I don't. But I can just do that same thing again. Shite. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. You heard nothing. It's just that only gives me a 2-pin overhang. Oh my god, I have 18-pin sockets. Give me... Do I have small? Yeah, let's do... What are... Do I have one smaller than that? Yes. No, that's the exact same size. Actually, this can potentially work. This can potentially work. I'll use one of that slightly shorter one. There we go. One of those. And I have 6 pins, so we'll just use a 6-pin. Now this is hardware engineering. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Over here. Over here. And that's everything, right? Oh, I was going to say the only other thing is that there is a 24 megahertz crystal that goes with the floppy controller. However, I think we have room for that. I mean, we definitely have room for that. I'm just trying to decide the best spot. I'm gonna go with here, I think. Like that or so. Anyway, it'll definitely fit, so we'll deal with that later. When it becomes relevant. Alright. I think my wife is home with the wings, so here's what I propose. I'm going to take these down. I'm going to solder them in. And then I'm going to take a break. Here, let's do this. Let's do this. I'll do that. It'll take me until probably 7 o'clock EST. And then I want to plug on this a bit. But I am the designated put the baby to bed at 8 o'clock person. So let me have an hour for dinner, like half an hour, 45 minutes for putting the baby down. And then, you know, like at like 9 o'clock-ish, let's reconvene for part 2. And I will probably work until I should really go to bed and then not. And that's okay. Does that sound like a good plan? Does that sound like a good plan? Is there a test option under tools? Just Google it. There is for logic chips. That seems to be it. I could still totally be missing something, but I'm over it. Yeah. So tape, right? Let me find it. Excellent. You know what's the thing that I figured out when? That's another thing is my soldering skills have also gotten, or maybe it's just my patience for soldering, let's go with that, has gotten a bunch better since building 6502 tutors, because that's probably a detail y'all don't know, is with the 6502 tutors, I built 13 of them, I think, 13 or, no, I've built 14 now. Because I made one for my dad and ran it over to him last weekend. But yeah, point being there is each of those take like 2 to 3 hours to build. There's about 200 SMD parts, including a the QFN. I don't remember. It's the one that's like a... It's basically like a PLCC without legs is what it boils down to. But the ones that I have are ludicrously tiny. Anyway, so I have been doing a lot of assembly, and for that reason, I think I feel less daunted by this because I have put a lot of hours in. It doesn't seem that bad anymore, and I've gotten a little faster, I would like to think. But here's where I'm getting at, is I developed a technique where I tack in a leg. This isn't exactly revolutionary. I'm sure people have been using this technique for a while, but instead of either getting wonky results or having to tape everything down, which takes forever, and I was doing for a minute, just tack in a leg, make sure it looks more or less right. If not, heat it up, zhuzh it, and then solder down the rest of the legs. Easy as that. And then you can just go ham. See, you'll see. I'm already halfway done with this socket. I feel like that's way faster than I was before. And I already wasn't bad. But it's just by the nature of doing it over and over again. It was taking forever, and that was the most annoying part, so you develop small tricks to get it to go a little faster. There we go. There's one of them in. Now let's do this PLCC socket. Make sure it's not actually running into the floppy header. And like the PLC is easy because as long as it's not like it's got a ton of surface area, so it is kind of going to balance itself out. The point being, it can't get too wonky, you know? There's a lot of pins, but it goes in clean. And of course, that's all just aesthetics. All right, so let's time this. This is the one with I think this is a PLCC 68. No, it's smaller. This is like a PLCC. Maybe it's a 52. Excuse me. No, it's a 68. The big ones I have for the CPLD and the big dual port SRAMs, and also the who's a what's it, the MIPS CPU, are all PLCC 84. So this is PLC 68, and then I think the smaller dual port SRAMs, the 1Ks, are PLCC 52. I might be getting that totally wrong, but I think it's 52. And that's all of them. Not entirely. There's actually what is it? The UARTs I got sitting around. Those are also PLCC, and those are something smaller. But I don't know. I haven't messed with one of those in a while. But you can bet I'm going to put one on the MIPS box. I have also been. It's really annoying because I want to build a Linux for my own machine. That was another thing. Maybe I'll tell that story because I'm not sure. It's a story. I guess that's a story. I've been a computer nerd, and everybody who's like a computer nerd from a young age generally has that thing where like at some point you're like, this stuff is cool, but like how does it really work? You want to know the magic. I've talked about that many a time, but specifically, I know because it was around the time when I was lucky enough to live in Japan, which was super cool. Japan really has nothing to do with it. It just makes that period of time very memorable. So I know exactly when it happened. But I know right about it was right when I was moving to Japan, which I was I had just turned 15-ish. I was like, I understand enough about computers at this point that, and I've been doing like AVR projects and had really started messing around with electronics. And I felt like I had done enough that I was like, I think I want to look at the data sheet for a CPU now that I understand data sheets, and I bet I could build my own like computer and really understand it. And I knew I couldn't build something like a full PC, obviously. But I was like, I bet I could build an older computer. And at the time I was reading about a lot of people's Z80 projects. There we go, done. How long did that take? You tell me. Reading about a lot of people's Z80 projects and what have you, and that was the other thing. I was like, I would like to build like a real computer. I would recognize as a modern computer. So I was thinking, like, what if, like, you use something like an ARM CPU or something? I bet I could solder up one of those. Anyway, I was having lots of those thoughts. Very clearly, I can remember at this time, because when I moved to Japan, I don't have any better association than I remember clear memories of sitting in my room and thinking about this, and I can picture the room and the thoughts very vividly for some reason. But that's where this particular vision spawned itself, which was some kind of CPU that can actually run Linux. Because I was like, you can compile Linux for a lot of shit. So I bet I can find a CPU that I can work with, but that can also run Linux. And the plan was, what I'll do is I want it to be as much mine as possible so that I really understand it. But, you know, I don't know, writing a whole operating system, I said to myself, this was also around the time after that when I realized this wasn't going to happen because I just didn't have the time or energy. I was like, I'm going to look into how operating systems work, and started writing P5, which is a thing. If you go over into my GitHub, that's my operating system. It's fine, it's cool. It's in a non-buildable state, but I got like a GUI working on it and stuff, so I was quite happy with it. Anyway, but I was like more interested in hardware at the time for some reason, as far as these projects went. So I was like, what I will build is a Linux kernel, and then I will write custom software on top of it for the user layer. Which at that time it was more like I knew that was somewhat a thing you could do, but I really didn't know. Now I much more understand exactly how that would work. And I've tried messing with that a few times, just like building a kernel and running a minimal init application on it with no system otherwise, just, you know, the kernel. So I've done that before. Anyway, so I have some history with that, and that's why I was playing with that as well. And so this was my plan. Build a Linux box with my own user land over top of it. And it's just not happened. And at this point, I'm like, I'm 33. I can do this. And I didn't realize it was coalescing, really, until I was just buying these random parts, and I got this MIPS CPU, and then I was like, I can do this now. I'm going to make a machine that has a MIPS R3000 CPU, and 4 megs of DRAM. Theoretically more if I can find bigger sticks at some point. That's just what I had. And one more thing. And it'll be my own workstation. I will build my own workstation, like I always wanted to. And so I'm there. And the thing that sparked that whole ramble was that I also was working with, like I said, I've been playing with building cross compilers and whatnot to get prepped for building a minimal kernel. Building a kernel for, you know, like customizing a kernel for a running Linux system, like building your own kernel for your running Debian install or whatever. Not that bad. We're talking about like it's gonna have to have a custom config made, a custom machine definition and stuff. There's a lot more to understand. So I've been playing with that and looking at what they have for like existing minimal 68K and MIPS configs. The whole thing was, I really started with that in earnest after I realized that my 68K was definitely going to work. Like the first time I executed code over there on the video card. And I was like, oh right, because one of the things that really inspired me in that whole vein was, I think I've talked about this before, but BMAU, which is not even worth like describing because everybody should know who BMAU is, big mess of wires. Really inspiring dude. Not that it's not like he's like some genius on high or something. It's just he does cool projects, and I've always really respected his projects and gotten a lot of inspiration from him. He did 60,008, which is the 8-bit bus version of the 68,000 minimal board running UC Linux. So as soon as I got the 68K going, you know, as I was saying, running C on it really gets me going. And it's for that same kind of reason as like building code, running it on your machine. Super cool. It feels great. And the first thing in my head was, well, if he could compile a Linux kernel for his thing, then I could totally do it for that. And so I started building a 68K cross compiler for that reason. And I built a 68K kernel that I didn't end up like using for anything, but I just made sure I could do it. And then I realized, like, I mean, it wouldn't even be worth trying. Like, I don't want to run Linux on the video card because I need it to be lean and mean and fast to do graphic stuff. So it'd be silly. But I wanted to do it, but then also there's only 2K of RAM on the thing. There's no way to build a Linux build. Even if I go with a really, really old UC Linux build, maybe there's a way, but So I moved on to doing it for MIPS because I was like, really, I'm gonna end up wanting to build a MIPS kernel for this thing, and that has been a headache. The 68K, it was like 3 tries, and I had a compiled kernel that looked fine. The MIPS, it's like if you're not building, like there's actually a system call for like flushing the TLB or something, or not a system call, you know, but it's a routine in the kernel specifically for MIPS builds, and it is implemented in the DEC workstation code. So like if you don't build that set of architecture files, you don't have that routine for some reason, because like I guess that's just not a situation that anybody's needed to build. So I have to figure that out. Anyway, that's a whole other fun thing. We've got the chips in there. I'm gonna look at chat really quick, and then I'm gonna go check out the wing situation. But I will note it was like 6:35 when I said I was gonna start tacking everything down, and now it's 6:43. So I think that took me like 10-ish minutes, maybe less. So I'm not scared about soldering the rest of this in a little bit later. All right, reading chat. AIO says, I return with pizza in hand. Did you ever make anything command line OS-wise? I've got a homebrew CPU with no graphics, just RS-232, and I'd like to have something interesting to run on it. The OS that I built, P5, the x86 one, the whole point of it was basically to get a GUI going because I was very interested in designing a GUI for some reason. Have I mentioned that okay, another side tangent, I gotta go eat wings. But does anybody here know Stardock and or window blinds? Because for some reason, this was my progression is, like, I got into computers, I finally managed to get my own hand-me-down computer from some family, installed Linux on it, was learning about Linux because I had heard about Linux and it was mind-blowing at the time. And no, even prior to that, I got the machine, hadn't gotten into Linux yet, had no money, so wanted to like make my machine look like Mac OS or whatnot. Learned about window blinds, played with Windows blinds, did a lot of customization crap like that, and for some reason that was the thing that made me go like, yeah, you can change the way this looks and whatnot, but like I want to make my own graphic system. I don't know. This has been a particular thing with me. I don't know if this resonates with anyone else. So the point being, long ramble, I don't really have a good text-based thing because P5, like, as I built it, wasn't like a conscious plan, but clearly everything I built was just to get a GUI going. So, like, there's no command processor. It's just like, I mean, there was, but it didn't really do anything. It's mainly that, like, there is the process management and memory mapping and scheduling parts to get everything working, and then drivers for running mouse and keyboard and VESA video, and then a GUI toolkit. And that's the whole thing. So if you want command line only, nah, unfortunately no. Wareworm says, have you seen the OX64 from Pine? It's a Pico form factor board, RISC-V with 8 megs RAM, and can run Linux. That sounds interesting. I've been avoiding RISC-V because it's so hyped, which is, that's the way I am. I try and not be like that, but I totally am. Like, Low down elitist. That's me. But at the same time, I'm like, I should play with it. It sounds fun. It's been growing on me. So that actually sounds interesting. I don't particularly want to run Linux on it, but I want to like do assembly and whatnot on a RISC-V. Having like a RISC-V Pi Pico board would be neat. AIO said, "Ha, yeah, window blinds, Mac OS 7." AIO says, "I also toyed with GUI bits a while ago. I want to stick a frame buffer or something on the end of it eventually, but I'm not there yet." That's fine. Building a CPU is crazy in and of itself, so I hope you're having fun with it. I didn't finish that one thought, and then I'll get out of here. The fun thing is, Stardock, window blinds. I did not realize, telling that whole story about having used window blinds a ton, Stardock, the company that makes it, you know, I've been hither and thither. I was raised in Flint, in the Flint area. Born in Detroit, raised in the Flint area, moved to other areas of Michigan, then lived in New York for a while, then came back to the Ann Arbor-ish area. So I've been everywhere, man. Or, you know, I've done my bits of travel. I feel like a worldly person. Oh, lived in Japan. When I was at one point looking for like software jobs in Michigan, which like it's not a huge there's stuff. I obviously work for a software company in Michigan, but I was looking around. Stardock is based in Plymouth, Michigan, and this was like maybe 5 years ago that I realized this. Had no freaking clue, and I actually. When I was looking at other jobs, when I got my current job, which I've been working at for about 2 years, around that time, I applied at Stardock because they had an opening for somebody to maintain all of that end of their software, including window blinds. And I actually got an offer to be the new maintainer of window blinds. But they couldn't match what I wanted. The offer kind of sucked. No, they seem like a cool company. I don't want to, like, I'm not telling tales out of school. It was just they couldn't match it, and unfortunately, I also make way more than that now as well, which is a bummer. But that was the hootiest thing to me. I'm glad I had that experience because I was this close to being I mean, window blinds wouldn't be the main thing anymore, but being the official maintainer of window blinds, which I think is hilarious. AIO said, "It's been a 5-year project at this point. Lol, it'll never end." That's the way it goes. That's how you know it's a good project. Okay, like I said, I'm gonna cut the stream now, but I will be back 9ish, and we will continue, and we will get ROM working at the very least. I promise you this. Okay, bye.